Hare Krishna. Thank you. Prashadam ki jai. जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रजजनरंजन यमुनातीरवनचारी 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 जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रजजनरंजन यमुनातीरवनचारी यमुनातीरवनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। समवेत भक्तवृंद की जय। जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदी। Hare Krishna. don't know whether to dress warm or cold. When you come into the temple, it's warm. Then after some time, it gets cold. All right. Okay. So, new chapter today. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tatho Jayamudhirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So reading from Canto 5, Chapter 20. Today we are opening a new chapter. The Chapter 20 is called as the structure of the universe, and we will go through text 1 to text 4 today, because 1 and 2 don't have any purports. Sri Sukam Vacha Ataha Param Plakshadinam Pramana Lakshana Samsthanato Samsthanato Varsha Vibhaga Upavarnyate. Sri Sukam Vacha. Sukadeva Goswami said, Ataha Param, after this, Plaksha Adinam, of the island named Plaksha, and others, Pramana Lakshana Samsthanatah, from the angle of dimensions, particular characteristics and form, Varsha Vibhagah, the division of the island, Upavarnyate, is described. The great sage Sukadeva Goswami said, hereafter I shall describe the dimensions, characteristics and forms of the 6 islands, beginning with the island of Plaksha. We'll read text 2 translation. As Sumeru mountain is surrounded by Jambu Dweep, Jambu Dweep is also surrounded by an ocean of salt water. The breadth of Jambu Dweep is 100,000 yojanas, which is 800,000 miles, and the breadth of the salt water ocean is the same. As a moat around a fort is sometimes surrounded by garden-like forest, the saltwater ocean surrounding Jambu Dweep is itself surrounded by Plaksha Dweep. The breadth of Plaksha Dweep is twice that of the saltwater ocean, in other words, 200,000 yojanas, or 1600,000 miles. On Plaksha Dweep, there is a tree shining like gold and as tall as the Jambu tree on Jambu Dweep. At its root is a fire. with 7 flames. It is because this tree is a Plaksha tree that the island is called Plakshadweep. Plakshadweep was governed by Idmajivha, one of the sons of Maharaj Priyavrata. He endowed the 7 islands with the names of his 7 sons, divided the islands among the sons, and then retired from active life to engage in the devotional service of the Lord. Text 3 and 4, translation. The 7 islands or Varshas are named according to the names of those 7 sons: Shiv, Yavas, Shubhadra, Shanta, Kshema, Amrita and Abhaya. In those 7 tracts of land, there are 7 mountains and 7 rivers. The mountains are named Manikut, Vajrakut, Indrasen, Jyotishman, Suparna, Hiranyasthiva and Meghamala, and the rivers are named Aruna, Nrimna, Angirasi, Savitri, Shuptabhata, Ritambhara and Satyambhara. One can immediately be free from material contamination by touching or bathing in those rivers, and the 4 castes of people who live in Plakshadweep, the Hamsas, the Patangas, the Urdhvayanas and Satyangas, purify themselves in that way. The inhabitants of Plakshadweep live for 1000 years. They are beautiful like the demigods, and they also beget children like the demigods. By completely performing the ritualistic ceremonies mentioned in the Vedas and by worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead as represented by the Sun God, they attain the Sun, which is a heavenly planet. The last line is very important. By completely performing the ritualistic ceremonies mentioned in the Vedas and by worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead as represented by the Sun God, they attain the Sun, which is a heavenly planet. From the purport point of view, it will become evident now when we see the purport. Purport by Śrīmad Prabhupada ki Jai. According to general understanding, there are originally 3 deities: Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva. And people with a poor fund of knowledge consider Lord Vishnu no better than Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva. This conclusion, however, is invalid. As stated in the Vedas, Ishtapurtam Bahuda Jayamanam Vishwam Bibharti Bhuvanasya Nabhi Tad Evagnis Tad Vayus Tad Suryas Tad U Chandrama Agni Sarva Daivataha. This means that the Supreme Lord, who accepts and enjoys the results of Vedic ritualistic sacrifices, technically called Ishtapurta, who maintains the entire creation, who supplies the necessity of all living entities, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidhadati Kamam, and who is the central point of all creation, is Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu expands as the demigods known as Agni, Vayu, Surya and Chandra, who are simply part and parcels of his body. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 9.23, Ye api anya devata bhakta yajanti shraddhayanvitaha te api mam eva kaunteya yajanti avidhi purvakam. Devotees who worship the demigods with firm faith worship me also, but not according to regulative principles. In other words, if one worships the demigods but does not understand the relationship between the demigods and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his worship is irregular. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita 9.24, Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhur evacha. I am the only enjoyer of ritualistic ceremonies. It may be argued that the demigods are as important as Lord Vishnu, because the names of the demigods are different names of Vishnu. This, however, is not a sound conclusion, for it is contradicted in the Vedic literatures. The Vedas declare, Chandrama manaso jatas chaksho surya ajayata, shrotra dayascha pranas cha mukhad agnir ajayata, Narayanad Brahma, Narayanad Rudro Jayate, Narayanad Prajapati Jayate, Narayanad Indro Jayate, Narayanad Astau Vasavo Jayante, Narayanad Ekadasha Rudra Jayante. The demigod of the moon, Chandra, came from the mind of Narayan, and the sun god came from his eyes. The controlling deities of hearing and the life air came from Narayan, and the controlling deity of fire was generated from his mouth. Prajapati Lord Brahma came from Narayan. Indra came from Narayan. And the 8 Vasus, the 11 expansions of Lord Shiva, and the 12 Adityas also came from Narayan. In the Smriti Vedic literature, it is also said, Brahma Shambhus Tathaivarkas Chandramas Cha Satakratuhu Evam Adyas Tathaivanye Yukta Vaishnava Tejasa Jagat Karya Vasanetu Viyujyante Cha Tejasa Vitejas Cha Te Sarve Panchatvam Upayanti Te. Brahma, Shambhu, Surya and Indra are all merely products of the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also true of the many other demigods whose names are not mentioned here. This is also true of such demigods. When the cosmic manifestation is annihilated, these different expansions of Narayana's potencies will merge into Narayan. In other words, all these demigods will die. Their living force will be withdrawn and they will merge into Narayan. Therefore, it should be concluded that Lord Vishnu, therefore, this is very important. Therefore, it should be concluded that Lord Vishnu, not Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As a government officer is sometimes accepted as the entire government, although he is actually but a departmental manager. So, the demigods, having achieved power of attorney from Vishnu, act on his behalf, although they are not as powerful as he is. All the demigods must work under the orders of Vishnu. Therefore, it is said, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Ara Sabha Bhritya. The only master is Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu, and all others are his obedient servants who act exactly according to his orders. The distinction between Lord Vishnu and the demigods is also expressed in Bhagavad Gita 9.25. Yanti Deva Vrata Devan Yanti Mad Yajino Apimam. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, whereas the worshippers of Lord Krishna and Lord Vishnu go to the planets of Vaikuntha. These are the statements of the Smriti. Therefore, the idea that Lord Vishnu is on the same level as the demigods is in contradiction to the Shastras. The demigods are not supreme. The supremacy of the demigods is dependent on the mercy of Lord Narayan, Vishnu or Krishna. Very long purport by Srila Prabhupada. Very heavy and driving the point home. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tam Maham Vande Sri Guru Dinatarinam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, in this section, there's a new chapter that has opened today. Nevertheless, this chapter is also in continuance of the theme of Vedic cosmology. Now, the Vedic cosmology in this chapter also continues to focus on Bhumandal. Okay. But interestingly, what is happening is that it is moving beyond Jambu Dweep. Bhumandal is like a CD, a compact disc, which has got many concentric circles and sectors. In between, they are saying, is the Mount Meru, which is the holder of the CD, if you like, right? And then the first concentric circle is called as Jambu Dweep, which is what we have been discussing up until now. Now we are going into the second concentric circle, which is outer circle of Jambu Dweep, which is called as Plaksha Dweep, the outer ring. Now between this inner circle and the outer circle, it is mentioned that there is an ocean of salt water. And then so on and so forth. If you go beyond Plaksha Dweep to the next Dweep that will come down the line, you will find that there is another ocean which is separating. So each outer ring is separated from each inner ring by virtue of an ocean, except that the ingredients of the constitution of that ocean is different. This time it is salt water today, which is separating Jambu Dweep and Plaksha Dweep. And then beyond Plaksha Dweep, there is a sugarcane juice that is coming. Okay, right? So that is what is. So today now from this section onwards, the focus is on Plaksha Dweep for some time, and then it will move on to the other sections. Now it is mentioned that Plaksha Dweep is double in width to Jambu Dweep. If Jambu Dweep was 200,000 yojanas or 1.6 billion miles, Jambu Dweep was 100,000 yojanas, Plaksha Dweep is 200,000 yojanas. It is double. And beyond Plaksha Dweep, it is mentioned there are 5 other Dweepas. Total there are Sapta Dweep, 7. One is already over, Jambu Dweep. Now we are discussing Plaksha Dweep. So beyond this there are 5 Dweepas which together constitute the Sapta Dweep of the Bhumandal, which is the earthly planets. Till now we have not even spoken about, gone beyond Bhumandal. So you can just imagine how huge and vast this whole one material universe is. And like that there are millions. And then we are sitting in Dank Street. Right? And like Prabhupada said, and we think we are important. Okay. So just as Jambu Dweep was divided into various tracts of land. For example, there is Mount Meru, there is a CD player, there is a concentric circle around the CD. The first one, Jambu Dweep. That Jambu Dweep was divided into various sectors or varshas. Just like that, Plaksha Dweep is also divided into various varshas, which has been mentioned in these verses. Just as there is one governor of each Dweep in Jambu Dweep, or each Varsha in Jambu Dweep, here also there is a governor. Who is that governor? That governor is called as Idma Jivha, who is one of the sons of Maharaj Priyavrat. And the Plaksha Dweep is also divided into 7 Varshas, except that here each Varsha of Plaksha Dweep is named after each son of Idma Jivha. Now it is mentioned that this Maharaj Idma Jivha, he divided these Plaksha Dweep into these 7 Varshas, and after that he retired. Okay, which is good, that he was not attached to his construction, if you like. Many times we construct a big house and then we get attached to that house and say that I will not move out of this till we are kicked out. Right? But this Idma Jiva, he is responsible for the entire Plaksha Dweep he constructed, and he divided into sectors, and then it said that he gave it in charge to his sons, and then he retired. Now it is mentioned that every tract of land here has a mountain and a river. And this mountain divides one Varsha from the other. That's the segregation. Just as one Dvipa and other Dvipa is segregated by a ocean, one Varsha and another Varsha within that Dvipa is segregated by a mountain. And then there is a river also. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary to this section says that this mountain range divides the Varshas and touches the ocean on both ends, running at right angles to the ocean. Also, he clarifies that the inhabitants who are here mentioned in the verse as Hamsas, Patangas, Urdhvayanas and Satyangas, they represent the Brahmanas, Vaishyas, so Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras respectively. So that is what not mentioned in the translation, but it is mentioned in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's purports to this section. Further, the forms of these people, and this is interesting, the forms of these people who are there in Plakshadweep are very similar to the forms of the demigods. That is mentioned here. And it is also mentioned that when they produce offsprings, the offsprings they also produce akin to how the Devatas produce. Needless to say, just as in the heavenly planets, the lifespan of these people who are living in Plakshadweep is also very long, 1000 years it is mentioned. Now, the key point here again for today's context is that the inhabitants of this Plakshadweep, they worship the sun god. They worship the sun god. Sorry, now again I am feeling cold. When I came in, I was feeling warm. What to do? Okay. So the inhabitants worship the sun god, and it is said that because they worship the sun god, they attain the planet of the sun god. Now, Prabhupada's purport is very interesting here. Okay. All this translation is about, what was all the translation about? About Plakshadweep, the divisions, the Maharaj, what was his name? Idma Jiva, right? And then the size. The entire translation is about the construct of this particular place. But nowhere here Prabhupada in the purport is elaborating on the construct. This is the interesting point today, right? So rather than focusing on Plakshadweep, Prabhupada's purport focuses on the difference between Lord Krishna and the demigods. Now, this is what, when I was studying this, I was thinking, what is this? Okay, I was still trying to say, am I not getting something, or Prabhupada has not expanded anything on the purport directly, So the entire purport has nothing to do with Plaksha. Then I remembered, that Keshav Prabhu many times told us that Srila Prabhupada often said that my purports are my devotional ecstasies. And whatever Prabhupada said I have written, they have been dictated to me by Krishna himself. So, what did Prabhupada want to spontaneously tell us, in this section? So, when we study this, it seems evident that Srila Prabhupada spontaneously chooses amongst all this information that is given us to caution his readers of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam not to get swayed by the lifestyle of Plakshadweepvasis and start worshipping demigods like they did and thus deviating from Krishna consciousness. So the whole purport today, Prabhupada is hammering that point. So Prabhupada therefore is highlighting the difference between worshipping Krishna and worshipping the demigods, and Prabhupada is hammering the supremacy of Lord Krishna over the demigods throughout today's purport. Srila Prabhupada's main concern for us in this section, at least today's section, seems to be to retain our Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. To maintain to sustain our single pointed focus on Lord Krishna. Because, why? Because what is Prabhupada writing? Which scripture is Prabhupada commenting on now? He is commenting on Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam has got only one goal, which is Ananya Bhakti towards Lord Krishna. So whatever other information Śrīmad Bhāgavatam will give is all in context of we surrendering to Lord Krishna and understanding his supremacy. Not getting enamored with the lifestyle of the Plakshadweepvasis and desiring a body like the demigod, right? Or thinking how nice the sugarcane ocean will taste. So therefore Prabhupada's purport has got nothing to do with that particular translation directly. So now the first thing that struck me when I studied this purport is, what would we have done if Prabhupada wouldn't have written purports to Śrīmad Bhāgavatam? Even if someone would have said, are you from Melbourne or out of town, we have got this Śrīmad Bhāgavatam for you, for all the handsome men or whatever, even if someone would have tricked me like that into buying a book, what would I have understood without Prabhupada's purport? I would have said this and, wow, Lakshadweep, fantastic. Let me go there. Sun God, okay. Om Suryaya Namaha. From tomorrow start that, right? Because obviously the temptation will be there, but Prabhupada's purports are the ones which keep us focused. So thanks to Sukadeva Goswami for giving us Bhagavatam, but double thank you to Srila Prabhupada for helping us stay in focus with the strategic intent of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, right? So that is what I realized when I was studying this. So that we will not only understand and realize, but we'll also start practicing Krishna Bhakti, and we will sustain our Krishna Bhakti throughout our study of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam without getting digressed with the phantasmagoria that is presented in the other planets which are like heavenly planets. Now, elaborating on Srila Prabhupada's purport today about the supremacy of Lord Krishna, there is ample Shastra Praman that is available that unequivocally declare the supremacy of Lord Krishna over others. Now, for Westerners, this is easy to accept. Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just like, for example, when you go to a piano class, one student went and said, I want to learn piano. They said, what is the fee? They said, $100, okay, for 6 months. Have you studied piano? They said, no. Another fellow came. Said, have you studied piano before? Yeah, I have learned piano before. Okay, $200 for you. Why? Because you have to unlearn before you start learning. So Westerners don't have the problem of unlearning. Okay, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Simple, straight, right? So in India, however, this is complicated. So in India, the common notions of God are many, many, right? And it depends on state to state. But amongst all these common, there are some which are very prominent. When you go to Maharashtra, what they will say? Ganpati Bappa Moria Pudcha Varshi Laukarya. Ganpati Bappa, okay, which is coming now. Lord Ganesh. Okay. If you go to Maharashtra, Ganpati worship. If you go to Bengal, what will they say? Durga. Right? Though Bengal is a land where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested, still Durga worship is prominent there. Okay. So they will say Durga. If you go to south, what they will say? They will say Shiva Bhagavan. Right? Lord Shiva. That is what they will say. Right? Or if you go deeper down south, Lord Shiva also vanishes there. There it is what? Vel Muruga. Lord Murugan, Shiva's son, Kartikeya, who is known as Murugan, right? So that is there. Or in villages if you go, you will find several names of Lord Durga and Kali. Somebody will say, it is Muttu Mariamman for me. Like that. It is Ambike for me. Somebody will say like that. Then if you go somewhere, they will say it is Muppadamman. Like that. Okay, for me it is all, my whole life is centered around Muppadamman. Someone will say Mahishasura Mardini, Ramyaka Mardini. Like that. No? So this is how it goes. And then if you go again, come back to Maharashtra and other areas, they will say Santoshima. They will give you chana. No? Like that. For me Santoshima. There was one in my building where I used to stay in my childhood. There was one lady. Okay, she used to say, for me it is Santoshima. I said, why? And then with tears in her eyes, she explained, once my son was in a swimming pool and then he disappeared in the swimming pool. Then suddenly the son was found in the bottom of the swimming pool. He was resuscitated. And the doctors said, they said that what to do. So she started praying to Santoshima. And the son somehow got his life back. So she said, from that day onwards, Santoshima is the Supreme Personality for me. There is nobody. Now, we understand the mother's sentiment. And even if we were in that position, it's a very, very traumatic situation. Okay, but still it is backed by a lot of emotions and sentiment and affection for her son. So her affection for her son is reflecting in the fact that she is attached to Santoshi Mata. Okay. Now, it may be quite possible that Santoshi Ma has saved. It is possible, because what can the demigods not do? They are very powerful living entities, right? But, however, beyond that, who is the person who has given them that powers? That is not the time to discuss with that lady, because she will not understand that. Right? So, therefore, it takes a huge amount of effort to convince Indians that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, the Shastras give so much Shastra Praman. So let us dissect today, one by one, let us dissect all these chief demigods and talk about the Shastra Praman. First of all, let us talk about Ganeshji. Ganeshji, where is it mentioned? What is the Shastra Praman? The Shastra Praman is in Brahma Samhita 5.50. Of course, Brahma Samhita only 5 is available, others are not available. But in then the 50th verse, what does it say? For Lord Ganesha, it says, Yatpada Pallava Yugam Vinidhaya Kumbha Dvandve Pranama Samayet Saganadhiraja Vignan Vihamtum Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So clearly it declares who is Lord Ganesh. It says, Lord Govinda's lotus feet are always held by Lord Ganesh on his tumuli. Now, why will that be mentioned? If Krishna is not supreme over Lord Ganesh, why will Lord Ganesh hold his feet on his head? Right? So, it is clearly mentioned there. However, when people come for the program and then they hear this, they say, yours is ISKCON program. Therefore, you are saying Brahma Samhita. As if Brahma Samhita is an ISKCON literature. Is there somewhere else also outside of Brahma Samhita it is mentioned, which even the Ramanujacharya Sampradaya will also accept? That is how they will talk. Okay. So even if you give Shastra Praman, they will think Brahma Samhita is an ISKCON Shastra. Because Brahma Samhita has been discovered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, obviously. So therefore, that predominance is there. But it is not an ISKCON scripture. It was not scripted by ISKCON. So then, for such skeptics who always want outside of this Shastra, then Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is there. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam clearly Lord is saying, Yate chamsha kalapumsha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Right? Now they will say, okay, but still Lord Ganesh? Then we have to tell them, please, my dear rascal, please understand that who scripted this Ete Chamsha Kalapumsha? Lord Ganesh only scripted that. If he disagreed, he would have told Vyasa, hang on, I am not writing anymore, I disagree. He would have said that. He did. He happily scripted. In fact, what did Lord Ganesh tell? It is said that he said, don't stop talking, otherwise I will go away. Keep, let the nectar flow. So Lord Ganeshji himself is scripting the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. So why will he script something which he does not agree to? He is not getting paid for this. Neither does he pay. Even if someone says that Lord Ganesh is supreme, he doesn't need any payment, then why will he script this? Correct? He didn't have any pecuniary motives for this. So therefore, we have to, enough Shastra Praman is there. Now, but what will happen is, people are people. So, like Emmanuel Lila was mentioning the other day, that in Bombay we have Siddhi Vinayak temple, Lord Ganesha's temple. Outside that there is a big queue. Anyone who is interviewed why you are standing here, nobody will say for bhakti. Nobody will say. I was also a queue member many years back. Regularly I used to go. Okay. Why we will go? We will go before examination results. Okay. Or because we have some girl in our mind and we are going to propose and we need blessings of Lord Ganesh. Ganeshji, something, So these are the reasons why people come, right? Because they say that Siddhi Vinayak, anything is possible. Even if you look like an idiot, that girl will get attracted to you because Siddhis are there. So some magic, nobody is getting attracted. So people stand with various reasons, in the queue. Now, if for some reason someone stands in that Siddhi Vinayak queue in Prabhadevi in Bombay and his desires don't get fulfilled, now what happens? If it gets fulfilled, they will say, Jai Ganesh, Pudicha Varshi Laukarya, Ganpati Bappa, Moria, they will say, right? And then if it doesn't get fulfilled, there was one fellow whose desire did not get fulfilled. Who was that? Me. And I'm telling from my experience. They said, okay, let's not go to Prabhadevi Ganesh. There is one in Titwala. We will go to Titwala Ganesh, who is on a coconut, like that. So we will go to that Ganesh. So what will do? You will go from Coburg branch to South Melbourne branch. Correct or no? Of the same bank. So one branch to another people will go, just to fulfill their own desire. And if it still doesn't get desired, fulfilled, then what happens? Then you say, I know Ganeshji doesn't exist. You deny the existence of that personality. And then what will do? He'll say, I'll go to some other demigod. From tomorrow I will worship Lord Murugan. Right? Vel Muruga. Because one brother doesn't listen to me, so let me go to the other brother. Correct? Both are sons of Lord Shiva. Right? So therefore, this is the mentality. Ultimately, we are in love neither with Lord Ganesh, neither are we in love with Lord Muruga. We are in love with our material desires. Simple. Right? Now, let's move on to Durga Devi. Again, Durga Devi, clearly it is mentioned. Shrishti sthiti pralaya sadhana shakti reka chaye vayasya bhibanani bhivarti durga ichchanu rupam apiyasya chachesta tesa govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Brahma Samhita 5.44. Durga Devi is a servant of Lord Krishna. She conducts herself in accordance, ichchanu rupam, in accordance with Lord Krishna's desire. I was giving this class in my home when I visited Mumbai 3 years back. I was giving this class and I was quoting this verse. One dentist was sitting in my house. He was our family dentist up until that point. He got up. Huh? You called Durga servant? Jai Hind! Vande Mataram! Actually, this is what he did. Jai Hind! Vande Mataram! And he went out of the house. I said, what happened to him? And then he came back after that. Again, he opened the door. He said, how can you call servant? Because he said, my Lord. And then I went to his dental clinic. I found Durga Devi like this. Big statue is there. Okay. Obviously, he got offended. How can, the person who is, when everyone enters his dental clinic, whoever sees big Durga Devi like this, and I call that Durga Devi a servant? Right? Because in the mind, people have a conception of servant because of Hindi movies, Servant means what? Somebody, in that Mallasan, what is Mallasan? When you go in Indian toilet, you sit like that, like that. The servant is sitting in one corner like this with that dirty looking towel on his, and then he says, hey, Mundu, chai leke aana. Oh, like that. And Alaya sahab, I'm getting, hey, get tea. Like that. Oh yeah, get upma. Okay, go and get double, what is that? Double latte. And then the servant is running around and getting. So this is the conception of servant. So people think there will be the Supreme Lord and then Durga Devi is, hey Durga Devi, hey, one masala dosa. Yeah, getting sir. People think like that. Okay. And this was a servant. When I said, then this fellow got, they have no idea that what is it to be a servant of the Supreme Lord. People don't have a conception of that. That is the problem. People think servant means like, someone who will be kicked and treated anywhere. But they don't understand Lord Krishna himself becomes the servant of his devotee and he takes the kicks of Arjun in battlefield of Kurukshetra to guide the chariot, right? So people don't understand the exalted position of servitorship to Lord Krishna. Therefore they get offended. Now again, if someone says, again ISKCON scripture, Durga Devi, Srishti Sthiti, Brahma Samhita, I will not accept. You ISKCON people. So therefore we'll say, okay, thank you very much. Would you accept Padma Puran? Padma Puran you will accept, no? Padma Puran, what is written there? Padma Puran, Durga Devi herself is hearing from who? Lord Shiva. Saying, Aradhananam Sarvesham, Vishnu Aradhanam Param. And she didn't stop talking to Lord Shiva after that verse. She accepted it. Tasmat Parataram Devim, Tadiyanam Samarchanam. Higher than worship of everyone is worship of Lord Vishnu. Vishnu or Aradhanam Param. And she was sitting there and they didn't get separated after that. Correct? Which means they accepted that. Right? So that is Padma Puran. Right? Now, even Śrīmad Bhāgavatam talks about so many pastimes. I will not go into details, but in 5th canto we see Kali. Jadbharat was there. Jadbharat was they tried to kill Jadbharat, the worshippers of Kali. But what happened? Kali herself, the deity, burst open into flames and then she killed all her own worshippers. Because they tried to harm devotee of Vishnu. That is another Shastra Praman. Advaita Acharya, when he was young, his eyes were so beautiful. He was called Kamalaksha. Like that. So, when his father took him to the king one day, and the king was a worshipper of Durga Devi, and then the father told, you pay obeisances to Durga Devi's deity. Advaita Acharya said, I will not, otherwise something is going to go wrong if I start paying obeisances there. Father said, no, you have to pay. So then Advaita Acharya paid obeisances, and what happened? The deity burst. Why? Because Advaita Acharya is Sadashiva. Which wife will accept obeisances from husband? Correct? Maybe in Kali Yuga, I don't know. But husbands accept beating also from wife. Okay? So what to speak of obeisances? Correct? So I don't know about this, but which cultured, I would say, family. So obviously, so that is another example. Then another example is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita of Chandidas. Chandidas, what was the thing? His brother was poor, Chandidas was very wealthy. Brother didn't have a garden. Chandidas had a beautiful flower garden. And Chandidas used to offer worship to Durga Devi every day. But Durga Devi never appeared before him. But one day what happened? His brother, he saw beautiful flowers, and in his mind he offered that to Vishnu, and Chandidas plucked that flower unknowingly and offered it to his Durga Devi, and on that day Durga Devi appeared. And Chandidas asked, so many years I have worshipped you, Durga Ma, but you never appeared. But today you have appeared. She said, because today you offered a flower which I am looking for. You offered me Krishna Prasadam. Right? And then what happened to Chandidas? Immediately change of consciousness happened, and Chandidas became one of the foremost poets of Vipralamba Bhav. Right? And Mahaprabhu used to relish Chandidas' poems. So from where to where? From being a Durga worshipper to talking about Vipralambaras. So this is so lot of Shastri Praman is there. A lot of pastimes are there which talk about the supremacy of Vishnu over Durga Devi. Now coming to Lord Shivji, again Brahma Samhita 5.45, Kshiram Yathadadi Vikara Vishesha Yogat. We know that verse. So Lord Shivji is only is what? Milk which has turned into yogurt. So there is Shastra Praman which we can give them. But again they will say Brahma Samhita, ISKCON. Therefore again we will go again back to Padma Puran, where Lord Shivji himself is telling Aradhananam Sarvesham Vishnu or Aradhanam Param, both from Durga's point of view as well as Lord Shiva's point of view, that is there. Now one verse that attracted me from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is chapter Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 4.3.23. Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabditam Yad iyate tatra puman apavritah Sattvescha tasmin Bhagavan Vasudevo Hi adokshajo me namasa vidhiyate. Lord Shiva himself is telling Sati, Parvati, after the Daksha's pastime, when she's asking, should we go, not go? No, like that. Lord Shiva is saying, he's talking about himself. He's saying, I am always engaged in offering obeisances to Lord Vasudev in pure Krishna consciousness. So he himself is saying that he is engaged in offering obeisances. So why we cannot accept? Right? Secondly, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, when he was lecturing in Fiji, there is one famous lecture, Demigods, Goddesses, you would have seen that. Maharaj is saying, look at Lord Sadashiva. He's sitting with a kamandalu, but he's always chanting on someone. Who is Lord Shiva chanting on? Why he needs to chant? So he's chanting on Mula Sankarshan, which is his Ishta Devata. So clearly there also there is Shastra Praman that is given here. Then if we say, no, we are Shankara Sampradaya. We are followers of Adi Shankara. What did Adi Shankara tell towards the end? Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. So he says, Bhaja Govindam. He said, all your Sanskrit rules of grammar will not save you if you don't surrender to Lord Krishna. You guys may become Vedic scholars, theologians, grammarians, philosophers. You may get ample recognition for your erudition of the scriptures, but you will not become, you cannot get rid of birth, disease, old age and death till you surrender to the feet of Lord Vishnu. And same Adi Shankara, who is Lord Shiva, himself said, Bhagavad Gita Kinchita Dita Ganga Jalalava Kanika Pita Sakridapiyena Murari Samarcha Kriyate Tasyamanena Charcha. Right? So he said that surrender to Lord Vishnu, surrender to Murari, the killer of the Mura demon, who is none other than Lord Krishna. So that is another Shastra Praman that you have, if you are a hardcore Shankarite, right? Then there is Advaita Acharya. When Advaita Acharya came here, what happened? Advaita Acharya was teaching Mayavad, playfully, not seriously, okay? Because Lord Shiva also, he has to do that. Right? Adi Shankar also, he did that. So he was spreading Mayavad. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and beat him up. And he, and jokingly. And then Advaita Acharya was running around, and Advaita Acharya's wife, she said that, Mahaprabhu, please don't, he's an old man, don't beat him like this. And Advaita Acharya said, no, let it come, because this was the goal. I wanted, this kind of a beating from Lord Krishna. So here is the combination of Sadashiva and Vishnu, who wants to have association with, the sweet association with Lord Krishna himself. So that is another Shastra Praman. If somebody wants to recognize only the supremacy of the Lord by the power of the weapon, I don't agree all these Shastras. Tell me if both fight. In childhood, in school, I always used to have this discussion. It was very interesting discussion. Every day in school, 3rd standard, 4th standard, 5th standard. Hey, if Amitabh Bachchan fights with Vinod Khanna, who will win? Who tell, no? Then there will be one opinion who will say, hey, Vinod Khanna will win. Another will say, Amitabh Bachchan will win, like that. So this was a constant discussion. You remember? Rajinikanth and Kamala Hassan, if they fight, who will win? Because in the screen, both of them are winning in their respective movies. If they fight, who will win? That was a big question. Right? So we are used to kind of looking up to great personalities. So sometimes a fight will decide who is the best. So here in Canto 10, Chapter 3, the Banasur Yuddha comes. Banasur kidnapped Aniruddha. So Krishna took his army, he said, along with the Yadus, they all marched to Banasur. Again, what happened there? It is clearly mentioned in that Yuddha. Kartikeya was, the son of Lord Shiva, was defeated by Pradyumna very quickly, such that Kartikeya had to beat a hasty retreat. And then what happened? Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu came face to face. The big battle, right? And what happened? Lord Shiva released his, what is called a Shiva Jvara. Shiva Jvara has got 3 heads and 3 legs, like that. So, it went there. And then what happened? Lord Vishnu released his Vishnu Jvara. And what happened ultimately? Vishnu Jvara immediately annihilated Shiva Jvara. To that extent, what happened? Annihilated in the sense that it was not destroyed, but it was subdued. Because Lord Shiva also, Krishna is very careful. Lord Shiva is actually Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu. So he did not destroy the weapon in that sense. But what he did, he subdued the power of Shiva Jvara, so it could not do anything. And Shiva Jvara recognized that. So it left Lord Shiva himself. And then it went and surrendered to Lord Vishnu. And the chapter talks about the prayers of Shiva Jvara to Lord Vishnu. What is the... Shiva Jvara is addressing Lord Krishna, saying, "Oh Lord," Shiva Jvara calls Lord Krishna as what? The person who possesses Ananta Shakti. So Shiva Jvara is recognizing the power of Lord Krishna. He says, "You are the possessor of unlimited potency. You are Paresha, the supreme controller. And then you are Sarvatma, the super soul of all beings, even of Lord Shiva." This is Shiva Jvara's prayer, right? Now, if someone says, no, hang on, let us talk about, celibacy, right? Lord Shiva is the ultimate celibate who never gets disturbed by women, right? He can have so many celestial damsels, he never gets agitated. Yes, it is a fact. But when the Mohini avatar came in front of Lord Shiva, what happened? It said that Lord Shiva was running behind Mohini avatar, right? Uncontrollably, right? He had no control over his body when he ran after Mohini avatar. So that is another Shastra Praman, that Vishnu can subordinate anyone simply by his beauty. Then somebody will say, what about benedictions? He can give so many benedictions. Yes, Lord Shivaji can give so many benedictions. He is Asutosh, easily pleased. But he gave benediction to Vrikasur also, right? And who had to come and save at that point in time? He gave benediction to Vrikasur that whoever's head you touch, they will die. But then Vrikasur went and tried to touch Lord Shiva's head only. And then he was running here and there. So that time Lord Vishnu had to come and save him. Now even if you extricate ourselves from Leela and we go to Tattva, in terms of Tattva also it is said in the spiritual world in Vaikuntha, Krishna's first expansion of Shiva Tattva is Sadashiv. In Vishnu Tattva it is Balram, but it is parallelly Sadashiv is the immediate expansion, Rudra expansion, who is also always worshipping and meditating on Mula Sankarshan. So even in terms of Tattva it is mentioned. Finally, coming to Brahmaji. Some people say Brahma is the creator. In Tamil there is one song, Brahmanuku moodu vandu unnai padaichan. You remember that song? Annamalai song, right? So Brahma has created you, So everyone thinks, everyone thinks that Brahma is the creator. Nobody can go beyond Brahma. How did Brahma get the mood to create someone? Who gave him the talent to create? Like that. Actually, that song is, the hero is telling the beauty about the heroine, saying that Brahma got into a good mood and produced someone beautiful like you. But who gave the ability to Brahma? So to that producer director, we have to tell that. So to him, we have to give Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 3rd canto. Tell him, excuse me, there is Sarga and there is Visarga, right? Brahmaji was struggling actually without knowing what to do. He himself did not know why he existed, correct? Then he traveled, astral travel, and he could not find Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Then he did tapa. And then Vishnu advised him, empowered him, and then Brahmaji himself in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 2.5.12, Brahmaji is telling Narad Muni, I offer my obeisances and meditate upon Lord Krishna or Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, whose invincible potency influences everyone to call me as the supreme controller. So he says, the less intelligent class of men call me as the supreme controller. And who is influencing these less intelligent class of men? Vishnu himself. He is bewildering them. Then Brahma Vimoga Lila, another classic example where Brahmaji stole all the cowherd boys. Again, Vishnu bewildered him. Then, if someone says, no, let us talk about qualities, let us compare in terms of qualities. So in chapter 89 of the 10th canto, the famous pastime comes when Bhrigu Muni is sitting with some people, sages, and they are all discussing, who is the supreme amongst the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu or Mahesh? Who can retain his mode of goodness amidst the most challenging situation? So what happens? Bhrigu Muni goes to Brahmaji, his father, and he doesn't show respect. Brahmaji gets extremely angry and he has to burn him. Before that he leaves the place. Then he goes to Shiva and again he's telling Shiva, what are you? No, with ghosts and goblins around you, all ash smeared. He's directly insulting with words. With Brahmaji, at least he did not pay obeisances. But with Shiva, he is explicitly, ridiculing Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva got so angry, he was going to chop him off then and there. But Parvati came and said, no, leave him alone, right? But he could see the anger of Lord Shiva. And anger of Lord Shiva is not very easy, right? And then he went to Vishnu. And then what did he do? Now, he did not forget about not paying obeisances, forget about words. With action, he kicked on the chest. Suppose you kick someone on the chest, will they pardon us? Even if you touch someone's car, they get angry in this country. How dare you touch my car? No, like that. Even if you park in someone's parking lot, people get offended, right? So if you kick someone on the chest, how much they will get offended? You can just imagine how angry. You'll say, what? Excuse me, I'll come now to finish you. And what did Vishnu say? Vishnu said, thank you very much for kicking me in my chest because you are such an exalted personality. Because your feet have touched my chest, my wife will not leave me now because Lakshmi will always reside in my chest. So he is thanking him actually. Will someone thank us? Thank you for kicking me in my chest. Will anyone say like that? If we kick someone? No, nobody will say like that. But Vishnu is saying that, which means what? He is in control of his anger more than Brahma and Shiva. So in terms of these qualities also the Bhagavatam talks about this. In terms of benedictions, Lord Brahmaji gave benediction to Hiranyakashipu and he couldn't take it back. It was then Lord Narasimha who had to come and sort it out, right? So if you see and in Bhagavad Gita again, Lord Krishna himself is saying, Aham sarvasya prabhava mattaha sarvam pravartate. I am the supreme controller. All these people are the cabinet ministers who work under the prime minister having different portfolios. And then in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna elaborates that, but even after explaining all these things, you people will still run to the demigods because you want your cheap material benedictions. So Lord Krishna is again cautioning us that even though they are able to give material benedictions, what is the nature of their benedictions? All those benedictions which they are offering you are coming from me only because I am only empowering them to give those benedictions. Just like if you go to a bank, if you go to a teller and give cash, you don't tell the teller, oh Mr. Teller, how nice you are. You are always giving me money whenever I come. No? Oh ATM, you are God because whenever I put my card and punch 4 digits, you give me money. How nice you are, Mr. ATM. Nobody will hug the ATM saying that ATM is God. Because it gives me always money whenever I want. Behind the ATM, there is someone who is checking your own bank balance and giving you your own money. Right? Maximum credit card. They will catch you by the scruff of your neck if you don't pay. So the demigods can have a little bit of a credit card power. They can give you little bit more than your karma, or they can bring your karma forward little bit and give you. But beyond that, they can't even give, because credit card also has got a limit. There's a limit how much overdraft a bank can give you, right? So therefore, people don't understand this. Further, people don't understand that the benedictions of the demigods are temporary, right? They cannot understand that the benedictions which we get from the demigod will bind you more into the sense gratification cycle. They will not liberate you. People don't understand this. And also people don't understand that the benedictions of the demigods are actually harmful, not good for you. For example, if a small son is there, okay, he goes to the shopkeeper. In India, cigarettes are available everywhere. He goes to the shopkeeper and say, hey, I want this cigarette brand. What the shopkeeper will say? Okay, he will say 10 rupees. Okay. If he says 10 rupees, if he give, the shopkeeper will happily give cigarette. And shopkeeper will say, every day you come, I will give you more. I have better cigarettes also. But if the child goes to the father and says, Father, 10 rupees, cigarette, what will the father give? One slap. In this country, I don't know whether it is allowed. In India, one slap, straight. Cigarette, you rascal. Right? At such a young age. Because this is father. Because father's chastisement, father is not saying, oh, $10 you are giving, very good, I will give cigarette. No, because father knows that though the son is giving me money, whatever the son is asking is not good for him, because there is love over there. So the father doesn't go by karma, which is like the currency. Oh, you have $10, I will give it to you. Whereas the demigods will give it to you, if you have the karma. So therefore, there are a lot of reasons which the Shastra says that do not go to the demigods for material benedictions. And even if a fool thinks, no, I will go to the demigods because I want a wholesome life, I want to enjoy my life. How many demigods can you go to? Because there are 16, how many demigods are there? 33 million demigods are there. 33 million aspects are there in our life which need to be addressed, right? Who all will you go to? If you go to the demigod who is in charge of the kidney, you will get a liver problem. If you go to the in charge of liver, then you will get a heart problem. And so many demigods are there. Who all will you worship in one lifetime? It is impossible anyway. Therefore, Krishna says people who worship the demigods are called as what? Alpa Medasa, fools, right? Now, to conclude our class, how do we bring people out of this? So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the answer in Madhurya Kadambini. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, see, Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Devotion has started with the stages of bhakti, starting from Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Anartha Nivritti, Bhajana Kriya, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asatti, Bhava and Prema. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur went into N-1. He went one level below in the first shower of nectar in Madhurya Kadambini. What does he say? But how does Shraddha manifest? Where does Shraddha come from? And therefore Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Shraddha comes from what? Ahaituki. Because bhakti is ahaituki and yadrichaya. Ahaituki means what? Causeless. Where does this Shraddha come from? Ahaituki means what? Causeless means what? There is no external cause for this bhakti. But still there has to be some cause. So it is said the cause of bhakti is called as causeless because bhakti itself is the cause of bhakti. That is ahaituki. And yadrichaya means suddenly how it comes in someone without anything. Suddenly someone starts chanting, dancing, etc. How does it come? How does someone get this bhakti? So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur concludes that Lord Krishna is very partial in who he wants to give bhakti to. Though otherwise he is very impartial. He is impartial and partial. Because he is impartial because he gives equal rain to everyone. He gives equal food to everyone. He gives equal facilities for bhakti to everyone. Everyone has an option of accessing Bhagavad Gita, but still he is partial to the devotee who, despite 50,000 people not accepting, accepted it. That one rare soul who is accepting that Bhagavad Gita and who is accepting Krishna Bhakti. So Lord says, I am slightly favorable to them also. But if the Lord is slightly favorable, still somebody may say, no. Then the Lord is still favorable. Okay. So what decides who becomes a devotee? So it is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur concludes saying that how does the Lord implement his favor? Through the medium of his devotee. Prema maitri kripa upeksha yah karoti sa madhyama. So the devotees, the madhyamadhikari is the one who discriminates who to give mercy and who not to give mercy. So therefore, if someone has to develop the basic Shraddha to start Krishna consciousness, what he says, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that we have to build their Shukriti. And Shukriti starts by association of devotees, by serving devotees. Even by accepting a Bhagavad Gita from their hands, their Shukriti starts. So therefore, for people who are stubborn, who cannot understand the supremacy of Vishnu over demigods, especially the problem is more in Indian context. How do we do that? That's why Prabhupada instituted the program of Prasadam distribution. So by Prasadam distribution, we are building their Shukriti. By book distribution, we are building their Shukriti. By Harinam, we are building their Shukriti. By outreach programs, we build their Shukriti. By Bhakti Vrikshas, we are building their Shukriti. Even our Sri Krishna Prabhu was photograph, by sending photographs of deities. The morning they see, they simply appreciate how beautiful are the deities. We are building their Shukriti. So we have to build their Shukriti through all these processes. And that is the only hope that they will come out of their stubbornness of worship of demigods and then migrate to the platform of Krishna Bhakti. So I will stop here and ask if there are any questions or comments. Yes. Yes, the demigods come out before the rest of the, because the demigods have to produce are in charge of the bodies of the jivas. So they have to ready it up and then the soul enters that, is given that body. So that is my understanding. Gopalanesh Prabhu, please correct me. Okay. So which means that in fact, demigods are there even before the Visarga. There are Sarga demigods and then there are Visarga demigods. So even before Brahma, Vishnu personally creates some demigods. That is also mentioned in 3rd canto. I think chapter 9 or something like that. You will see that.
So their karma and depending on their Shukriti, so they are advanced, so they are allowed to come out.
Definitely. Yeah, they are higher devotees of the Lord, though they are Mishri Bhaktas. But it is possible for a jiva who comes later to develop Shuddha Bhakti, which even the demigods may not have. That is possible by the mercy of an exalted Paramahamsa Vaishnava. Thank you. Grantraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.